tonight, yeah, lightning talks. We have several people that have already said what they want to go over. This isn't in a particular order. And after we get through those people, anyone that is interested, please, you know, just come on up and we'll give you the floor and you can show us something. The idea with a lightning talk is to either maybe talk about something that's you found interesting, or to show off like a tool that you've used, or you know, just something useful, or just some tip that you want to share with other people. And so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. I'm going to jump to the front of the line and do mine real quick. So I couldn't decide what I wanted to talk about for the lightning talks. I figured I should probably talk about something. And just yesterday, I had a need, and I found a tool that solved that need, and I thought, this is great. Like, this is a really cool tool, and I think devICT should know about it. So if you don't already know about it, it's called Ingroc. It's like what it says there, secure tunnels to localhost. I want to expose a local server behind the NAT or firewall to the internet. So for what I mean by this, here, this project this is one of the Open Wichita projects. It's still in its infancy, pun. And so there's not a lot here. But this isn't on the internet anywhere. This is just running locally on my machine. But let's say I want to show it to a friend who's on another network somewhere. Or I want to run it through some kind of like online validator. Or I need, the thing that I actually ran into was I needed my website at work. I wanted to use Facebook's debugger tool to scrape the site and pull all the Open Graph tags so I could see what will my site look like when somebody shares it on Facebook. But in order to do that, you have to be exposed to the internet so that Facebook servers can scrape your site. So what you do, like here, this is on localhost 8080. So if you go to localhost 8080, you're not going to see my website. But what I did was you download the tool. So Ingroc is written in Go, so it's available for cross-platform. And when you download it, like here, I'm going to download this. And it's just a single file. So you unzip it, take that file, stick it somewhere in your path so you can execute it. And when you execute it, it's like this. Let me make it a little bigger. Oh, I make it a little smaller. OK. So they give you some examples of things you can do with it. And this is like the most common use case is you would say, Ingroc, I want to just make an HTTP tunnel on some port. So my website is listing on localhost port 8080. So I'm going to say Ingroc HTTP 8080. OK. So now what it's done on ingroc.io on their website, they've created a random subdomain that anyone can go to right now. So if you go to 40a47b0a.ingroc.io, you'll pull up my local machine. So I'm going to take this, and what I wanted to do was I wanted to see how well Brian adhered to like compliant HTML. So we're going to take that, and we're going to run it through the validator. And now this validator.w3.org scraped my local machine and validated the HTML. In this case, it all passed. Good job. It's all compliant. So I mean, that's pretty cool, just being able to you know, expose something local. It also gives you a little web dashboard locally as well. This is not exposed, unless you ran another Ingroc to expose this one. Right, but so this is just like, it's like a man in the middle. It's inspecting all of the traffic going through and letting you use this for, you know, to kind of see the statistics of how long is it taking to hit these different like routes and what's the result, and there's like a lot of stuff you can do with it. So anyway, that's all I wanted to do. Just show you that tool. That's all a lightning talk has to be. Just something that you want to share. Let me close that down. So who would like to go next? I guess I'll volunteer you because you're
It just showed up.
All right. And we'll cut you off at like 7 minutes.
Oh, I've got 5 minutes? Okay, well, somebody needs to like hold up a sign or something so that I can stay on it.
I'll give you like 1 minute, 2 minutes.
Okay, good, good. All right, well, I got to get cracking here. I'm Matt, for those of you that don't know me, and I just wanted to show off some of the, let's see if I can figure out this keyboard. Show off some of the utilities that were in my bookmarks bar that maybe not everybody knows about already, but that they might find useful. So the first one is a Diff tool that you can run online. Oh, wow, this is really small. Command plus, thank you. There we go. And you guys probably have native diff tools that you guys like already, but, well, let's try this again. Oh, there we go. If I want to select everything, is it Control A?
Command A.
Command A.
Oh.
Oh, okay. Select everything in a text box. How do I do that?
If you put it in here, I think it should do it. Now try.
Ah, there we go. We got it. Okay. So I warned you guys. Yeah. Yeah, all your command things are my, okay, but if we want to copy to the clipboard, is it? Okay, very good, thank you. For me, yeah. Okay, and if I want to open in a new tab, command, okay, well, I just want to, do I control click? Can I do that? Command click?
The link, command click, yeah.
Okay. There we go. And I think we'll just use the mouse for this. Thank you very much.
Yeah, are you sure?
No, I'm not. Okay. So here we go. There we go. Now we're clicking with yes. There we go. Anyways, the thing that I like about this diff tool, there we go, is there's a lot of online diff tools, but this one, you paste your content in side by side, and not all of them do that. And then whenever you do your comparison, your results also come in side by side. And I just found this the most readable of the lot. Ah, we got the wrong thing here. Okay. I think I probably just was, I probably just didn't copy. So let's just say, and we'll do that again. And so you get a highlighted diff. It's sensitive to changes inside the line, so the syntax colors the way that you would expect a diff tool to color. And the downside to this diff tool is that I've noticed that it's not always online, but nevertheless, I like it the best out of all the ones that I've actually worked with, because it just gives me the diff that I actually want. So let's get off of there. And the next tool that I wanted to show was a JSON editor. Again, there's a bunch of these online, but this one is my favorite. If you, yeah, so there we go. Ah! No, we can't JSON Shakespeare. Let's try this again.
Right click. Which means two.
Okay.
Right click is 2 fingers. There you go.
All right. And let's see. There we go. That's what we wanted. And so this particular JSON editor lets you take your JSON and it will turn it into a tree that you can click through. And it's pretty handy if you have like a gigantic wad of JSON. The tree window, it's pretty easy to navigate to a particular tiny piece out of your gigantic wad of JSON. The other thing that I like about this particular tool is if you have messy JSON and you turn it into a tree, if you go ahead and take your tree and translate it back into JSON, it'll pretty print what you started with. And so if you don't have something that's huge, a lot of times I find it easier to look through the JSON in text form. And frequently I get stuff that doesn't have line breaks in it, and that's a real nice way to just pretty print it quick online. So gradually moving along. This is a interactive selector tester that is probably more handy for people who are new to selectors. But gosh, I really wish that I had known about it whenever I first started learning selectors. You put your markup in the right-hand window, and you put your selector in the top window, and on the left you get a object tree that shows what selectors are actually active. So these green ones out of the whole tree are the ones that are actually active. So this div here, is this big enough for people to see? Not really? Okay, so let's do that. So this one here is getting selected because we have the element selector menu. If we take that out of our selection list, that disappears, it's not highlighted anymore. The form here is selected just because we're selecting all forms. And let's do it like that. So that's not selected anymore. This input here is selected because we have input selected. So now we're just down to the list element down here. And you can type in your own custom selections. Let me see, we don't have anything. I don't think I'm going to try to brave that, but you can say li, and if we just want the last one, it'll respect that, if I can type it. So you can see that, oh, I bet it's down here. Yeah. See if we can scroll down there. Let's do something different. There. So you can see that the selector is, I mean, it does, any selector that I've ever tried will work in this. And I think, again, if you're already used to doing selectors and you're comfortable with them, this may not be that useful, but those of you that are a little new to using CSS and jQuery selectors, it might be very handy for you. Is that my 1 minute warning or my 2 minute warning? Oh, that was my 7 minutes? All right. Well, I was going to tell you guys about MailInator. That might be the best of the lot, but maybe I'll send that to you next month.
Can you give us just a quick summary of what it is?
Yeah, MailInator.com. I'll go ahead and I'll just tell you. It's a domain. You can send email to any address at MailInator.com, and then you can use their web interface to browse that mailbox. So it's incredibly handy if you want to test throwaway processes, like, for example, maybe signups for your application that require a unique email address. You can test 6 different signups by sending 6 different MailInator addresses. It's a whole lot easier than trying to mess around with setting up real fake mailboxes or doing something with SMTP on your local machine. And that's my 7 minutes, so on to the next person.
That's probably good. I didn't know which order these were in, but you'll have to reload.
that's fine. Really, okay.
You need
No, aside from the wolves, we'll get there here in a minute. What I'd like to talk about is it's really important to me to share with people that you have to remember who you are writing the code for. Now, I am a one-person agency, so I got, I do everything for the customer, for my client, and so I can't pass it off to code writers. I can't pass it off to people who only write modules. I'm not a big, so I just want to remind everybody that when you're writing code, keep in mind who the client is, who you're writing the code for, whether the client is your boss or the client is a person who thinks he knows something about web design, and you have to be walk very carefully to get around the whole fact he really doesn't. For example, this guy, he's a nice guy, but he built his site. Let's go back to the home page. This home page, sans just the background picture, sans the buttons. The background picture, he had made that himself and he was proud of it, but his entire website was that tiled to eternity. It was just that after that after that. And then he had text on top of that, and he had his keywords everywhere visible, and he had no links. I mean, the links were different in different places on every page, and he wondered why people got frustrated trying to find what he was trying to sell. And he got introduced to me. He's in Texas. We've never actually met. But I had to finally take a hard line with him and say, well, you know what? Here's the deal. First of all, let me back up and say, for people like him and for all my customers, I code individual CMSs to specifically do what it is they need to have done, because I don't need the overhead, for example, of an entire WordPress when I'm just going to do one tiny part of it. And WordPress is even more difficult for these people to run than, because these are not computer people. This guy is a dog person. He's a wolf person. And so, but he did know how to upload files. My point is, I built little CMSs for them because it's a whole lot easier on what the client feels like he's being tech savvy because he can use what I've written for him. The client changes only what he and she, what I allow them to change. For example, he uploads stuff and this is not working. This is, oh yeah, I see, yeah, let me try that. Let me try this. Sorry, forgot about that. Got anybody look at my password? Well, I don't think I did it right. Man, you guys know what it is already. Okay, this is what I did for him. That entire website, and I will show you. Let me do this one too. I think this one is what this is. Alrighty then. That didn't work. It's loading. Okay, that's the person. This entire website, and we'll go to current litters. So when you mouse over a litter, you see a bigger picture over there, and same with the parents and everything, and this is all throughout this website. He uploads his pictures to everything that you see that says underscore images. How do you make it bigger? There we go. Everything you see that says underscore images is what he uploads to. He has no idea that the entire site is in the SCW directory because I'm trying to keep him away from the code, because he goes in there, he thinks he knows what he's doing, and I'm trying to keep him away from the code because it's like nothing he's ever seen. He'd written HTML. This is a PHP site. I write everything in PHP just so I have that flexibility for stuff. And there's also lower head. I talked about the lower overhead. So the other thing, that's about how to organize file and directories so that he can upload to those things. He thinks he's doing the other thing. And how close am I? Can I go to Schultz Fruit? Okay. Okay, this is a fruit company that I have, and she is very interesting because she is driven by her shipments. She doesn't know what she's going to get shipped to her. So she needs, when the truck comes, she needs to be able to have an application that she can write down what it is she's got and then sell it and keep track of her inventory and cost control. So again, this was a person who knew, she's pretty tech savvy. She was doing this whole thing she was doing on Excel, keeping track of all of her orders, keeping track of all of her shipments, keeping track of all of this. All of this was done on Excel, and I can't imagine how anybody would do something like this on a spreadsheet without a database. but she's somewhat tech savvy, but so she knew exactly what she wanted. And what she needed from me was the ability to add products, add vendors, it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Properties. Intuitive is good, but properties, she didn't quite get it. It took a while to get it from Excel to how to LAMP. Because she didn't understand S. I mean, or Control S. She didn't understand that the button that says Save Data was necessary. But there's editable properties in here, so she can change her tax and she can change her name, the from name on the email. Okay, that's another example of CMS. Is this thing right here emails people for her, and it sends people an email with all those graphics in there, just like this. This is an exact replica of the email that would get sent. And so she can contact her customers, work with her inventory, and I guess my point of all of this is just remember who you're coding for, and you got to make it super simple for if the person is not tech-based. If the person is tech-based, then you can start cutting corners and go more technologically, but it's very important to remember for who you're coding. That's it.
Who would like to go next? Okay. So the floor is yours.
Okay.
For the video, there's no slides on this one, but listen in. It's
Yeah,
good.
just,
And just imagine what she's showing us.
I'll pass around my jack. There is. We can log on to adafruit.com at the end here, I guess. So anyway, yeah. So this is kind of like show and tell at school is what it feels like. My name's Lynn Miskell. I'm a software manager during the day, and I really started missing coding, I guess. My kids. We saw an article or something where somebody was talking about a jacket they had, and when you pulled the zipper, it turned the TV on. Which I thought this was a great idea. When my kids were little, I always hated going, you're trying to have a family dinner at your nearest fast food restaurant, and the TV's always on. So I thought, well, that would be great. So anyway, I found a place that sells those, so I thought, well, I'm not going to start with that as my first project. So I started looking into electronics and textiles, and there's this like whole big giant world now of wearables, and it's very cool. So this is kind of my first Wearables 101 project that I bought off of adafruit.com is the website where I ordered it. And the basic idea is just there are 4 like programmable LEDs on here. And there's a microcontroller called a Gemma. It's about the size of a quarter. I'll pass this around so you guys can all see it. But there's like 8K of flash on here. There's a micro USB connector, a battery connector. There's 3 I/O pins, power. So I'll turn it on first. The project itself is it's got this. So it's got the LEDs, and then the Gemma, also this is version 2. So the version 1 didn't have a power switch, but the version 1 does, and I can barely see it. So anyway, so the project basically entailed sewing the microcontroller in and the LEDs, and they've got conductive thread, basically like comes in 2mm, 3mm, depending on how much current you want to go through there. But so basically using the thread then as the circuit. So I just programmed it to show the LEDs themselves. You can program them individually. So you can program it to like light them in sequence or flash on and off, and then the color value is you can go from 0 to 255 on the red RGB, red, green, blue value. So This one's just programmed to kind of cycle through all the different values, and then I picked the second LED and just kind of put a flash program on there. So I should have brought, it's not 100% Arduino compatible, but pretty close. It takes kind of a subset of the commands from the Arduino. So I guess that's the other piece I wanted to kind of talk about is there's the other part of the hoodie is there's a potentiometer on this side. And so you can, I don't quite have this part working yet, but this is basically another sensor input. So when you slide this trinket down on the potentiometer, you can change the signal to, you can make that so it changes the color or brightens it or flashes faster or something like that. So that's just another source of input that you can use as, you know, to program your LEDs. So that's my precursor to the zipper that turns off the TV.
Next. I'll go. Go for it. See if this little man is different. So,
It's a PowerPoint, so just wherever. Okay. A Windows virus. I'm lost, man.
So here is you.
Yep.
And then which one?
Either one. Yep.
I haven't started the timer yet, but maybe I should.
In the meanwhile.
No, it's okay.
I'm still learning. So.
I think it's like the first time I've opened it. So
Oh, okay. All right.
there we go. Maybe.
Maybe.
No, that's not going to work. Anybody ever used PowerPoint off on Mac? That's the keynote. Let's try it. Oh, this.
Is it like minimized on here?
Oh yeah, it might be. No, I don't think so.
What's going on?
Like it said it was opening it. This is partial. Oh, what if you like copy it to the desktop and then open it?
Hit window and said bring default to front. Oh, maybe not. Okay. There we go. Okay. Nice.
And then it's.
You got your,
It's okay because there's the full
okay.
one.
All right. That just jumps. Yeah. Notes. Okay. So my name is Ben Blakeley. I'm an amateur developer, but I like video games. So I wanted to share a little bit about what I know about open source game console emulation. There's my contact information. So I'm going to be talking about open source emulators, not freeware or commercial. There have been a lot of emulators that have been put out for the past, I guess, 30 years now, but most don't have full source code, so you can't look at the bits inside. Ness, Ultra HLE, these are some really popular ones. that just were closed source, and so you couldn't really take a look at what's inside. Some emulators were open source later, and so I will be covering those. And this will just be a subset of the ones that are open source. Mainly, I like to hit the high points. So for people who don't know, console emulator, this is directly pulled from Wikipedia, yeah, I know. But basically, it emulates everything about a video game console. The graphics, the sound, the input. If it uses a ROM, a cartridge, or a disk of some sort, or digital download, the emulator has to emulate everything. So the way that they go about it is slightly different depending on which emulator you're talking about. So early on, this is pre-2000, yeah, back in the day. So these are some emulators that are now open source that you can take a look at, and these are the various machines that they emulate. So I'm going to be talking about the top 3 because I think those are the most interesting. Crap. So I did it in OpenOffice and then converted it, so that's why it's falling off the screen. So MAME and Ness are kind of the granddaddy of emulation. They were individually created in 1997, and they just recently, within the past couple months, merged into one project. So it's BSD licensed with a caveat that you can't use it for commercial purposes. This is so arcade people can't use MAME to make MAME cabinets and use them for commercial purposes and all that. It is officially Windows only, but it does have community ports, and it actually emulates the original components down to the individual hardware and favors accuracy over speed. So something like Ridge Racer, which is a 3D game, actually can't be emulated currently at full speed because it's emulating down to the actual machine language that the arcade machine runs on. But it's actually pretty impressive and can run a significant amount of stuff. So SNES does Super Nintendo, another 1997 birth for DOS, GPL'd in 2001. This is the one I used a lot growing up. So it favors speed over accuracy, and it's actually programmed in x86 assembly. Yeah, so it's open source if you want to look at it, but good luck. Another Super Nintendo one is SNES 9X, originally made for Windows 95 and then got ported to a whole bunch of stuff after it got open sourced, including Amiga, the PSP, Android. It's programmed in C++, so it's a little more portable, so that's why it got. So moving forward a little bit, emulators get a little more complex, a little fancier. They emulate the next generation of consoles additionally. This project was originally SNES. It's also focused on accuracy like MAME, but it's cycle accurate. So it just recently was able to run Super Nintendo games at full speed on like 3 gigahertz machines. It's also programmed in C and C++, and so it's got several official ports. Visual Boy Advance, it actually had one of, you know how open projects sometimes get forked multiple times to multiple projects, and then eventually someone decides that this is the best one and they all merge back together? This is like that one. It's actually included in modern emulation front end, RetroArch, which I'll cover at the tail end. Project 64 emulates Nintendo 64. Like many emulators of that era, it handles graphics, sound, and input with third-party plugins. This is a big problem with emulators of this era because a lot of those were closed source, even though the emulators themselves were open source. And then the modern emulators, and I know I'm out of time, but I'm going to keep talking for just a little bit more. Okay, so these are the ones that emulate basically the next. I think it's considered the 7th generation of consoles. It's the Wii, the PlayStation 2, the Xbox 360, and the DS and the PSP. So this project, Dolphin, was actually the one that inspired me to make this talk, because the way that they run this project is fascinating. It's incredibly, their code base is incredibly easy to understand. They have monthly blog posts in non-technical detail explaining exactly the commits that were done during the previous month. It's in the source is on GitHub. The developers are extremely diverse in age, sex, gender identity, the whole thing, the whole gamut. That's it. Yes. So its development is extremely fast-paced. And so you might have one game not running 1 month and running the next month, or you might have a commit that fixes 50 games all at the same time. And it's programmed in C and C++ and Objective-C++. PCSX2 was created about the same time as Dolphin, and they got a little sad because Dolphin was getting all this attention because their community was extremely welcoming and easy to access for even non-technical people. And so they said, oh, we can do that too. And so they made blog posts, and they're doing the same thing. And of course, I left my phone over there, but I was going to show you guys PPSSPP, which is an emulator that's been ported to a bunch of different stuff: iOS, BlackBerry, Symbian, Raspberry Pi, and Android. And so you can run PSP games on your Android. So, okay, time. So just look at that.
Awesome.
Thanks. Dolphin. It is.
I know, right? It's my teaser. All right. How many designers are in the room? Oh, good. I can make things up. Okay. Because I'm not a designer. I'm a programmer. But I had somebody give me a little quick class once about 10 years ago that really just stuck with me. And it's a kind of a non-designer's guide to design. So, in other words, how to make things not look horrible. There's a lot of things programmers and coders are good at. Problem solving, making something from almost nothing or nothing, depending on the requirements. Working very long hours, and overall just being awesome. I think we're really good at that. Things we're not real good at, design and layout. Not usually our best thing. Some people are really good at it. Some people really struggle with it. A lot of programmers really struggle with it. Yeah, yeah. So that was the only thing I could find. I went through my whole list of everything, and that was it. So it's great. So I'm going to go really high level over 3 little things: justification, fonts, and alignment. Okay. So first, we're going to go over justification. Main thing is, please just pick one. And what do I mean by justification? Okay, there's 4 different types of justification. There's obviously left justifying, right justifying, centered, and fully justified. What I mean by that, in case you have no idea what I'm talking about, is just left aligning text or pictures or elements on your page or layout, right? And this doesn't apply just to programs. This applies to PowerPoints. This applies to flyers if you have an event going on. Everything that has to do with text and graphics. Okay? So one of the questions you may ask when you're putting a page together or a website together or something together is, well, which justification do I use? Well, a lot of times you'll have a design element that you kind of have to focus on, like a logo. Your client will give you something, color scheme, and a logo. A lot of times you can just look at the logo and go, okay, well, what is it? Is it centered? Is it a centered logo? I mean, is the design a centered type logo? Is it left justified? What is it? You can base your whole page off that logo. And basically, if it's a left justified logo, I'm pretty much stuck doing left justification. And then you should just continue to use that throughout all your design. If you don't have a logo, great. Still, you need to pick one. Okay? Don't mix and match. Otherwise, you end up with what I call term paper design, which is everybody's done term papers. A lot of times you'll have a centered title, and the rest will be left justified. That's not necessarily a good way to do things. It's just something that we've been taught to do in school. The best thing is to keep everything in one justification. So instead of doing a centered title and left justification, do everything left justified. It looks a lot better. I don't know why, it just does. Fonts, okay? Big thing with fonts is if it's different, make it a lot different, Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, let's first look at different types of fonts. There's 4 different kinds. There's serif, sans serif, script, and decorative. Okay, so what I mean by things to remember is if it's different, make it different. So I can kind of show you. You can see it. I have a title and I have a subtitle. And these are 2 different fonts. And they look totally different. I made them totally different. They're a different class of font. These 2 are 2 different fonts, but you can't really tell. But you can kind of tell, and it kind of throws things off. It's very subtle, but it doesn't work as well. In my presentation, I'm using the same font throughout. I'm just capitalizing the title, and I'm left justifying everything. Another thing you can do is, what font should I use? I think I kind of mentioned that, or is the same thing as justification. Look at your logo. If you have a logo design that you're working with, use some of the fonts that are in there. If you don't know what they are, ask the designer. They can probably get it for you. Other thing is 1 to 2 fonts. Don't get crazy with fonts and use a whole bunch of them. And then stay consistent throughout your pages, your layout. It makes it look a lot better. Okay, alignment. Align it with something. Okay? You have an element on a page, it needs to be aligned with something on the page itself. It can't just be orphaned out there and just floating around on its own. Case in point, go back to my first slide. Okay, so I aligned my font, my text, with the corner, believe it or not, of this house, right here, lined up with it. And that's what I picked to line up with. They're all lined up with something. And then this picture itself is actually left justified. So I did everything left justified. It just looks better. I don't know why. It just does. That's what they told me. So I'll go along with it. But yeah. So that said, another thing that bothers me personally, and if you ever read this book that I'm going to reference here in a second, it'll bother you for the rest of your life, is when you have a logo on a page. So you've left justified everything. Then you have a logo on the page, and it's over about 5 pixels and isn't lined up with everything else on the left. Just move it over 5 pixels. Pixels make a big difference. Even 1 pixel will throw off your whole page if you don't realize it, if you don't know what you're looking at. So pixels really do matter. So in review, justification, pick one. Just one, stick with it. Fonts, if it's different, make sure they're different. Make sure they're probably a different class, or at least a different typeset, like capitalized or bold or something. Alignment, everything should be aligned with something on the page. It can't just float out there. And this is all out of a book called The NonDesigner's Design Book. Great book. It was written by Robin Williams, not the same comedian. This is the 3rd edition that's out right now. I think I learned this in the 1st edition. This is how long it's kind of stuck in my brain. So it really just kind of helps out if you know just a little bit about design. It'll make you work better with designers that you're working with and make them not hate you as much. So that's a good thing. Thanks.
I think we have Sarah and Seth. And does anybody else want to go after? Still have time, and then we can just jump in. Nobody read my email. The good news is we have PowerPoint working now.
Awesome.
But how do we? What's the answer, Seth? What did we do? There we go.
Keep the logo. Should I stay yours?
And then how do we do slideshow? There we go.
Thank you.
All right.
Hello everyone, I'm Sarah, and I'm just trying to give a brief talk about my PhD dissertation. I'm a 4th-year PhD student in Wichita State and computer science. So the research that I'm working on is we are trying to make an a framework for software maintenance tasks. And as a PhD student, I don't have access to the industrial data, so I work on open source systems. And I have a couple of questions. How many of you guys involved in open source, maintaining an open source software or tool or project? Okay, cool. So how many of you guys participate in review process of those open source systems?
Yeah.
No? You guys? Okay. How many of you actually submit a patch, and that patch got accepted to the final repository? Awesome. Okay. So you guys all know about how to fix the bug, how to make a patch, how to submit a patch to the review process, and how actually that patch get merged to the final repository. So I call this process from start point, which is fixing a bug or adding a new feature or making a change, to the end process, which is merging to the repository, as a process of software maintenance. So, the research that I'm working on, that I'm trying to make an automated way for all of this process, which is kind of, if it's gonna happen, if it's happened, it's gonna be super good, but we cannot cover all parts of that, but we are just trying to do that. And software community, actually, I can tell they're trying to do that in the last 15 years, to make an automated tool which make all of this process faster, more accurate, and as an automated way. So these are a couple of sentences that you all know about that. Why the maintenance phase is really important, because it costs 69 or 90% of software lifecycle. So if we can come up with a good framework to make this process easier and faster, we're going to help lots of companies or open source project or a software community. So the 4 tasks that I'm actually work for this framework is a feature location, which means when a new bug's coming to the system, which part of source code actually need to be changed for fixing that bug, which is really important. I'm not talking about the small source code, small projects. We are talking about the big open source project with million lines of code. So it's not that easy when a bug's coming to the system. You cannot say that, oh, this bug's introduced by this part of source code. So if we have a tool that actually recommend us this, said, okay, these are the top file that have more, that have the potential that actually introduce this bug, it's going to help a lot. So we call this problem in the software community as a feature location. And the other one is feature location or impact analysis. So what's the impact analysis is that, okay, as a programmer, you're changing one part of code, and you was like, oh, awesome, I made a new patch, I'm going to merge it to the repository, but you don't know that actually this change is going to affect on different parts of the source, which if you don't take care of that, it's going to introduce new bugs to the system. So we call this problem as impact analysis. When you actually change one part of source code, which other part of source code need to be changed because of this change that you introduce? The other problem you're trying to solve is when a bug's come into the system, again, I'm talking about the big open source project or big industrial project which have probably hundreds of bugs per day. So when a new bugs come into the system, who actually has the more expertise to fix that bug or to add that feature? So if we have a company with, like, for example, 100 employees, 100 software developers, which of them actually, if we can come up with a tool that recommend these developers has expertise in this area of source code, so we kind of help that person that is responsible for assigning or triaging bug. And the last one is that, okay, I made this patch, I submitted to the review repository for the review process, who is the person that has expertise to review my patch. And also, does my patch have a chance to get accepted to the repository or not? As a reviewer, I want to know how much is the chance of this patch getting accepted to the repository. If the chance is really low, I'm not going to waste my time looking at this patch set. I'm just going to go check another patch for review. These are 4 tasks that I'm actually working on that. We've published a couple of papers. One of the tools actually run in Microsoft data, and we got good results, which is published in the mining software repository conferences. Okay, let's see. This is a change request for Eclipse bug tracking system. And for this bug, the only things that it's available at the first point is just a bug description. Based on this bug description, I need to find which part of source code need to be changed. Based on this bug description, I have to come up with a recommendation that who has expertise to fix these bugs. And most of this process, because the only things that I have is bug description, it's based on textual similarity or information retrieval or natural language processing, because the bug description is based on natural language. So we use lots of mining techniques to mine the historical data from code review repository, from bug tracking repository, from source code repository to mine those data and come up with this recommendation. I cannot go to the detail light because I just have 5 minutes. And actually, Jacob told me if you can talk fast, you can be an auctioneer. If your PhD doesn't work, you can be an auctioneer. Okay. So when this bugs come into the system, based on impact analysis or bug feature location, I can tell, okay, this part of source code need to be changed. So how I come with this, there are different ways. I can look at the similar bug description that are already fixed on the repository. Just 1 minute. Okay. Or I can get the bug description, and I can get all the source code information, textual information from the source code, create a corpus, and then run TF-IDF for textual similarity or cosine similarity, figure out, okay, this part of source code is kind of has more similarity to this bug description. This is for impact analysis. Never mind, we can pass it. And the different approaches that we can use is based on a static analysis. We can come up with a dependency graph of or programming slicing for the source code, or we can come with dynamic analysis, which is a call graph, or using the or mining software repositories. These are the techniques that we can use. And for developer recommendation or code review recommendation, as we know, in source code repository, we can find the maintainer of the code or owner of the code or author of the code. So based on this information, I can say, okay, this bug probably need to be solved by this person, these people. And that's it.
That's really cool.
Automated review processes. That'd be awesome.
I guess you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I think I know what I'm doing. Okay, we'll find out. Okay, am I timing myself? Is that cheating? I'm just gonna give another minute. Okay, so I don't have slides. I'm just gonna pull some stuff up on here. So I went back and forth, like, I don't know, between at least 3 or 4 different topics on what I was going to talk about. Like I was going to do Ruby one-liners because you can do a lot of crazy complex operations in one line with Ruby. I was thinking about talking about JavaScript promises because I get asked about them a lot. But I decided I want there to be more developers in Wichita. So I wanted to just give like a really quick talk on how to become a web developer from not knowing anything about code. All right, notes. So my background is I'm self-taught. I have associates from Butler in web development. I didn't learn a lot from it. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of really great teachers out there. So I had really awesome resources for me to go off and ask them questions about things that I was learning on the side while I just got through the source code. Not sure what's going on. Sorry about that. Whatever. So I just taught myself. I went to El Dorado High School. This is unfortunate. Could be. Yep, there we go. Okay, so I went to El Dorado High School. We had no computer classes. There was nothing for me to learn from my school there. So I was basically left on my own to learn what I could just using the internet. So I just did a lot of searching online and like reading about things. And when I started out, it's like you're Googling around, you're reading about things, and none of it makes any sense. But I always try to tell people that, like, read it anyways. Try to take in as much as you can. Take notes about it. If you see terms that come up a lot, like, remember those. Look into those things, because later on down the line, it'll all click. Like, you're not taking in nothing, even if you don't understand it right off the bat. Time's going quicker than I thought. The other thing that you have to really utilize, and this is why I'm really glad that devICT exists today, is that the development community, this is what, like, I got into development because I thought it was cool. I was like, those people are smart. I wish I could do that kind of stuff too. But then I realized as I got more into it that the development community just across the globe is really, really awesome. Like I don't know that other industries have the community that software developers do, and I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. Like, everybody's really excited about it. Everybody loves what they do, and they love to share about it. So when you're first getting into it, you always have this fear of, I don't know what I'm talking about, and people are going to look down on me because I don't know what I'm talking about. But that's not the case. If you go up to somebody who is a good programmer and they like what they do, and you ask them a question, they're going to be excited to give you an answer because they like to talk about code, because they like code. That's pretty much all there is to it. We love to share our knowledge. That's why we have these events and want to get up here and talk to people about it. So ask somebody questions. I guarantee you're not going to bother them. So hopefully all of you are in devICT Slack. That's our just chat room area that we are pretty active in. We have like 170 people in there right now. So I highly encourage you to get in Slack. If you're not in there, ask anybody to get you an invite and we can make it happen. And use us as a resource. The other big thing is there's a lot of really awesome websites these days that can get you started learning code. So the first one I always recommend is Code Academy. Number one reason is it's completely free. So you have these really awesome interactive lessons. Do they have like a starting one on here? I probably don't have time. But they have these interactive lessons. They'll introduce some basic concepts to you, and then they have an exercise that you fill out and submit it. It'll make sure it's correct, and then you move along. And they've got like a messaging platform built into it, so when you're on a specific step of a problem, if you're having trouble, you can go into discussion and talk to other people who've worked through it. People can give you hints and things like that, or you can just jump into devICT Slack and ask for some help. So Code Academy is really good. It covers a pretty wide range of topics. Does it have? Yeah, down here it's got some of them listed. So make a website. They also have projects, which is something they've added more recently. So you can learn the concepts and then you go through the project tutorials as well. So you're actually building something more comprehensive and applying it. They also have a decently diverse selection of languages. It's all web development focused, so HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, Python, and Ruby. And then some frameworks within those things, as well as SQL, which is definitely good. But usually after a while, you want to go deeper than this. So there's other resource website or other websites just like this, like Code School, Pluralsight, Treehouse, and Lynda. Those 4 ones are paid, but it's they'll go a little bit more in depth and a little bit higher quality in some regards. Let's see. Okay, so real quick. There are other more in-depth resources out there. A lot of books. Books are always good, but sometimes books cost money, and free is always better. So there's this, and I'm going to give one specific example. So if you're trying to learn Ruby on Rails, there's this website called railstutorial.org, and it's a book. So you can buy the book, but if you see right here underneath the book on the left, it says read online for free. They have the entire thing online for free. This is how I learned Ruby on Rails, and that's what I do for my job these days. Like, I owe my salary to this free online book. Like, it's that easy. And this goes really, really in depth into this one specific topic. And I use this example because this worked out personally for me, but I know that other resources like this exist for other frameworks, other languages, whatever it is you're trying to get into specifically. You just have to go out there and find them. Just use Google as much as you possibly can. The other thing is, as you're going through this stuff, so say you're going through the book or you're going through Code Academy and you have a specific question about some specific topic that it's covering, just type your question into Google. You don't have to worry about keywords. It's, what does it mean when they say blank? And you're bound to get an answer. 90% of the time, your result is going to be this website, Stack Overflow. So this is a Q&A website for developers. So any question that somebody, you can see it's just a specific question, then somebody gives an answer. And this has been around for a really long time, so there is a gigantic wealth of knowledge here. And that's my time. So point being, it's really easy to teach yourself. Just put in the time and ask lots of questions, and people are willing to help.
Speaking of lynda.com, which library is it? Is it like Newton?
Yeah.
So if you go to Newton and if you have a library card at their library, you can get access to lynda.com for free. That's LYNDA, Lynda. Nobody wants to see this. All right, Tanner, do you want to go?
Yeah.
All right.
You guys have 5 more minutes.
I don't know, man.
I know, I'll see you a little late. It's bedtime.
I'll make it quick. Window. Here you go. And can I install Firefox?
Yep.
So there's this cool new tool. It's this browser called Firefox. Oh, actually, Firefox.org is not. Okay. Don't like this. Mac is not my favorite. Giving them a little ad revenue. Okay. Let's take a few minutes. If I could be. You can start the timer. So I'm going to talk two things. Well, multiple things, more than two things. But we'll start with this. So if you've been around in the Linux channel on Slack, probably heard me mention this before. But it's a Linux distribution I currently use. It's called NixOS, and we'll get to that what NixOS in just a minute. But we'll talk about the simple thing first, which is Nix, which is the whole thing it's based on. And on full screen. On full screen. Just do that. 10 seconds left. Okay. So Nix is interesting, and this is kind of an advanced topic. If you've never used a Linux distribution before, probably won't care about this. But if you have, Nix is really interesting. It's kind of it's kind of or whatever, but it's much more powerful and flexible than either of those tools. So it's billed as the purely functional package manager, and what that means, the difference is that normal package managers will install the package and all of their all the files that it needs and all the configuration and everything. It'll install it all into the same file system. And so you go to etc/config files, whatever, and there's the configuration files for all the software that you've installed on your system. And oh, is it already open? I didn't know it open. No, it's not. So we're getting going now. Okay, so Nix is interesting because it doesn't do that. It doesn't install everything into the same file system. Every application is installed in its own little thing on separately inside of the Nix store. And does it talk about it here? Maybe. We'll go to scroll up. Oh, other way. Freaking. And it went to the mobile side. Fine. Okay. So Nix is different because it stores every application under /Nix store, and then some unique identifier, which is basically a hash of every input that went into making that software. So if you change a single config flag when you go to build Firefox or whatever, this hash will change, and you'll actually have two different copies of fully workable Firefox installed simultaneously, but they'll be under a different path, under a different hash. So this is good and this is interesting because this whole kind of identifying things by all of its build inputs allows you to share binaries across systems and mix and match them, which is really nice if you're a developer. And again, it's more advanced topic, but you can have multiple things installed at the same time, side by side. You have everything is encapsulated inside of this little thing, and it's all sim-linked, and it's great. And what I really like about it, besides atomic upgrades and rollbacks, is Nix environment and the thing called Nix shell. So basically, if you're at all anal retentive or OCD or anything like that, it's really nice to be able to basically define little mini environments for every project you're working on. And those project-specific tools live only inside that environment. They don't pollute your global namespace. They don't mess anything up. So when you're just using your normal computer, you just get all the stuff you want globally. When you have to go work in project XYZ, you just like Nix shell, and it kicks you into a little sub shell, which has all those installs for that project installed and accessible for you. So I like it because it keeps everything clean. I don't have to have tools that I'm only going to use in one project installed on my global path, and it keeps things like nice and tidy, which is really not the great reason to use it for the neat and tidy thing, but it's really nice because it captures your dependencies. And so you can share this environment file with your coworkers or whatever, and they open that shell, Mix will build all the dependencies and make them available inside that. So it's like reproducible environments, kind of like what like a Docker or container would provide you, but even lighter than that and not as isolated. Of course, it is just a subshell, but it has all these things exposed only there, and it's really nice. And there's a lot more to it. If you're interested in a demo or you want to talk more about it, find me either tonight or in the Linux channel or whatever. I really like Nix, and the package manager itself, Nix, can be installed in parallel with whatever you're using. It does work on Mac and Linux. Because it stores everything under Nix store, again, it can be installed parallel with anything you have. It doesn't mess up anything. So that's a good way to get started with it, is just to use it in parallel with apt-get or Yum or whatever you're using. But if you want to go to the next level, you can use NixOS, which is a whole operating system built around Nix. And the really nice thing about it for me is it's pretty much like my dream configuration system. So you have one file which describes the entire system. You can break it up. You can have it more modular if you want. But in essence, you have basically etc NixOS configuration.nix. Nix also has its own language called Nix, so a little confusing. But right, so the .nix, this file describes the entire state of the system. So you basically have this, it'll be more complicated than this, but this describes everything that you want. So you set up whatever services you want started, any software you want installed globally, blah, 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 blah. And then you run this NixOS rebuild switch, and basically it builds a whole new profile for your system and then switches you into it, which is why you have the switch part. And the really nice thing about this is that each new generation that you make, every time you switch, it does generate a whole new profile separately. So like when you go to Grub and you go to boot, you'll see all your different generations listed there, and you can boot into any of them. So you can go back 2 weeks if that's the known working state. So you can switch if something breaks. It's like, okay, well, I'm just going to boot in the last one, the last good state. I'm good to go. I can make my changes, whatever. So it's atomic and with rollbacks for the entire operating system. Pretty much. I mean, you can't really roll back some changes to the bootloader, but for the most part, it's completely atomic, which is really nice. And I love the configuration system of having one file and it describes the whole state of the system. It's really magical. If you've ever had to hassle with Ansible or Salt or Chef or anything, and they like hidden global state, where if you enable something, you sync out that change, you disable it, or you remove something, well, you have to sync out that change, but you have to keep that removal or that disable in there because every system might not have synced up to it being removed yet. So if you just drop the whole line, some systems that haven't got the new removal are going to have it. So it's messy when there's this hidden global state, and there's no hidden state with Nix. And in 30 seconds, I will show you the other thing I was going to show you.
30 seconds on the clock.
What's a good website? Let's do duckduckgo.com. And hello. Okay. Is it command click? Double click? No. I want to right click. 2 fingers? 3 fingers? 2? Oh, there we go. Okay. I think it's like Shift Q. Anyway, I discovered this the other day and it's pretty neat. So in new Firefox, I think in 40 or 41, there's this little guy. It's this little emblem. If I can blow that up. It's right here beside each class. There's this little thing now, and it highlights everything that is using that class. If I can find something that is a bit more interesting. Okay, this is everybody. It's going to be everything. Well, okay, so DuckDuckGo is a great example. But basically, it highlights everything that's using that class on the page. So if this was repeated elements, you could see that. So that was cool.
And anybody else? All right, Jason. Thanks. Do you want a browser open or just a browser? There you go.
So a lot of us have been asked to fix somebody's existing website before. It's not really your stuff. And a lot of the stuff out there is going to be LAMP. So LAMP, you know, is a common stack. It's been around quite a while. But some things to consider are how would you actually optimize that? So the task I was given is, we have a website, it runs LAMP. However, it basically is too slow. It handles a maximum of 20 users. So what are we going to do? The server's out of memory, database is out of memory. So I found out there's a few things you can do, and Apache is not just static, it's very dynamic. It has a multiple processor, you know, the threading models it uses. So anyways, I thought about dumping Apache and putting Nginx in there. Like Nginx, you know, is well known, it's very fast. However, in Apache 2.6, they adopted Nginx event model. So you can essentially have Nginx in your Apache threading model. So right there, I got a very huge speed up. I went from 800 milliseconds down to 30 milliseconds. And Apache, of course, has a benchmark tool, so you can use that. The other thing in PHP is you don't have to run mod PHP. So it's typically Apache is loading PHP as a module. You don't need a PHP module. So I chose fastCGI to run PHP. So with fastCGI, I also get some different capabilities, let's say. And it's also lower on the memory overhead. And one thing I could do is I could upgrade different parts of the system. So they were running an old PHP 5 low number or something. So I could take it up to 5.5 or 5.6. Somewhere around 5.5, there's something called opcache. I don't know if you've heard of opcache, but a lot of things in the PHP world are sort of like built in Zend. Zend is a corporation who tends to like hold on to code for a while and then they give it away for free. So Zend opcache was actually open sourced in 5.5. And so I was able to install 5.6 and install opcache. And so every single page load of my LAMP website was using previously 16 to 17 megabytes. So to load one page, it was doing a bunch of calls. So that was at least 4 times 16. And multiply that by 20 or 100 users in here, you're going nowhere. So with opcache on, it brought it down to about 3.5 megabytes. So what it does is essentially pre-compiles that PHP, and it keeps it in an efficient caching system. So it's pretty slick, and it's real easy to turn on. If you've ever gone to the PHP info, where you get like the dump of all the info about the whole environment, that also has opcache stats in there, so you know the amount of memory it uses, the number of hits, the number of uses, and you can actually tailor that cache to your memory configuration, or you can exclude things from the cache, which might actually cause issues there, or you can explicitly add things to the cache. So just looking at the problem, I was giving a site that was too slow a budget of we can't increase the hosting, and what am I going to do? So we couldn't move hosting companies either. So another thing I did is I called the hosting company. We've been there for 5 years. I said, don't you have new servers? Well, yeah, you want a new server? So we got double memory, and we got SSD RAID for the exact same cost. So we got new server, new Apache with a new threading model. We got PHP as fastCGI now, PHP with opcache, and then finally the fruit that we didn't want to touch too much was the database. So if you've never gone into the PHP MyAdmin, well, you don't know what I'm talking about. But if you have, look around in there. There's an Analyze button, and it will actually do a lot of statistics on the actual system log of the database, and it'll tell you where your indexes are off, where you need an index, where if you do inserts, it should be maybe a different version of database structure. So inserts and reads are different, and you can certainly optimize for that. So it's 5 minutes, 2 more. So after we optimized the database, we actually were able to get our queries down and going a lot faster. This happened to be a Drupal site. So in a lot of web frameworks in PHP, you can install performance logging tools. And so in this case, we wanted to know how long that PHP thread was going from start, to finish through the bootstrap, all that. And then we also wanted to know how long were those queries taking, and then exactly which queries they were. You can also turn on slow log or query slow log. Basically what it is if a query goes over your threshold, so you could make it 1 or 2 seconds or even lower. If it goes over that threshold, it'll be logged and it's red and it shows up in your performance log. So we clicked through that and we found like silly things where we were in a for each loop, but we were actually doing it 4 times instead of, so we had 4 inputs into a 4-time loop, so it was 16. We only need to go through 4 times, we were going through 16 times. But that kind of shows up in those the slow queries. And the analysis tool is actually pretty nice because we had a table read that was not quite 1,000,000 rows, but it was getting there. And it speeded up a lot. I don't know how it happened, but we didn't have an index on it. So putting an index, using some primary keys, doing some of that basic stuff. So we basically got near a 90% improvement in performance, 75% reduction in memory, and they were happy, and I got my paycheck. And so. I didn't show much up here, but you can kind of Google fast CGI, PHP, opcache, and then the analysis tools for the database.
I just want to point out that the third article there in Google is a Stack Overflow article. How to use.
Yeah, and we definitely used it for sure, a lot of this.
I think we have time for one more. Yeah, great.
Come on up. Okay, do you need a browser?
Just a
or
browser.
anything? Okay.
All right, I'm going to introduce you to, has anybody heard of the CMS called ModX? Other than, I'll talk to you. ModX, it's a developer's friend, designer's friend, simpler than WordPress to work with. And I'm just going to give you a quick demo. So if you're interested, you can, I think, just go to modx.com and go check it out. You'll see information there, but I'll just give a quick demo on a website that we worked on recently. So we worked with a designer in the Des Moines area to develop basically a Virgin Cane Spirit website. It's a single page site for the most part. There is a secondary page on here, but we were given this to work with basically, and said, hey, can you make this into a content management system for us to be able to manage the content? Sounds fine, but it's very unique. Nothing's common and everything's kind of disjointed, so what tool do you use? ModX is one that we've used for a number of websites, and I'll kind of show you why it's friendly. Hang on a sec. What that? Real quick. Okay. All enhance. So this is what the manager looks like when you log into the back end. Most users just work within this tree structure on the left-hand side called resources, and all these components here match up very similarly to the links and components on this website. All these are custom configurable, easily added through templates, template variables, chunks, snippets. The coders will enjoy this part of it because you get to create your own, essentially, PHP bits right here, and then you can inject them in any content you want or any template you want, and you're not limited by any kind of framework or structure. It's as open as you can possibly want it. I've actually developed Flash websites that use the content management system CMS of ModX because you're not limited to any kind of particular template or framework. So for this particular customer, one of the more challenging things, which isn't really, but for them, they thought it was tough, is how can we get an original image, a rollover image, and then get this pop-up content? You know, how are we going to be able to manage that? Well, we gave them a section called Mixmedique, which matched their title. And we give them these resources. We'll kind of zoom in here. Well, like the Cape Lemonade, even gave them a little martini glass icon because we can customize the manager. So they click on that, and they can manage their content here. If there's custom things for this particular page in terms of images and whatnot, they can do that here. There's a file manager, all the kind of things you'd expect in a typical CMS. It's all there. And it's highly configurable. So that's kind of an idea of what some content might look like. Uses the rich text editors and that kind of thing. But these template variables, definable, categorized, you can do anything you want. Files, just simple text, you name it. Something I thought might be handy for them would be like a settings section. So I created a resource called settings, put a gear icon on it, so they would think, oh, hey, that looks different. And then we just completely hid everything except for the things that we wanted them to edit on this particular page. Contact information gets used on many websites. Well, how do I change my phone number? Oh yeah, I didn't give you access to the footer. Well, yeah, we did. It's in the settings. It's on every page now. Social, so you know they can put all their Pinterest links, Facebook links, Twitter links, that kind of stuff. And again, this is customizable. So I called it social, but it could be something else. You know, if I want to have like a gallery of pets or something, you can do anything. It's just completely flexible. You start with a blank slate, again, kind of a developer's dream and a designer's dream. When you merge those two together, like we had to do for this project, it made all of this manageable. So yeah, ModX, for anybody who's interested, look it up. You won't be disappointed. It's simple, and every customer we've ever handed off to, they like it. Prefer it to WordPress most of the time. So there you go.
If there was any prize you get it, you're the only person who actually did it 7 times.
I think Lynn had 4.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's all we have for tonight. You're welcome to hang out. We'll be here probably for another hour or two, just socializing. So thank you again to everybody who presented.